Hey everybody, it's Safi and Marco Dish Out on Movies, the only movie review show on YouTube to review movies in terms of food. It's just Marco here, and although I did find a new way to watch movies, which will lead to some reviews in the coming days, I decided to do a different video today. There was this really funny article that popped up this morning, and I thought, wow, I can't resist. I'm sorry, when I see stuff as dumb as this, it doesn't really make me mad because, there's more important things to be mad about. Like I know when a lot of people see these videos, these topic videos, they think that the people who make them are they're actually angry. It's like, no, not really. Not most of the time, except for when I explicitly state it. But this was something that it's really bad, guys. Like, this might be it might be the biggest downfall for Scream 6. It might be the biggest problem when it comes to the Jones Awards of 2024, because the actress who plays female Randy, and let's just start off talking about female Randy as a character. Well, actually, no, let's not, because that'll come into play, and it'll be pretty bad. So the actress who plays female Randy in the terrible Blumhouse Scream trilogy, she came out and she said, "I was never interested in horror because it was just so straight and white." That's just not interesting to me. Aside from my one white woman show a year, which was Big Little Lies, and then The White Lotus. Now, this is pretty bad, guys. Like, I swear, I don't understand how these fucking people can say this type of shit without, like, feeling a little bit embarrassed. Like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here? Like, what are you, a fucking Black Panther from the 1960s or 70s? Like, what are you doing? What's going on here? Like, what type of shit is this? Like, are you serious? This is 2023. And when was this woman born? 1994. She's only 4 years older than me. She's born in 1994. And she's pretending like horror doesn't have diversity and it doesn't have gay characters. This is just absolutely insane. It's stupid. It's inflammatory. It's ignorant as hell. Because, I mean, first off, the way that she says it was just so straight and white. And it's like, how many horror movies has this woman seen? Like, does she actually know horror history? This is why I wasn't into the whole, Scream 6 scene that everyone said was amazing, where she started giving all these, like, opinions on horror movies. Like, Psycho 2 is underrated. And it's like, you know what? This woman, she hasn't even seen Psycho 2. She's not going to watch that because it's not gay and it's not non-white. So that means it's not interesting. And I find that hilarious because it actually is gay. If you guys don't know, Anthony Perkins, he was gay. And he died of AIDS. And so, Psycho 2, although the plot doesn't have anything to do with his sexuality, because sexuality is not a plot point. Sexuality is not a character trait. Even so, he was gay. But apparently, because that wasn't what the movie was about, and because he wasn't black or whatever, it's not interesting. And now, let's reverse that. What if I said, And now this would be something that I would never say because, I'll watch pretty much any movies I want to. Just, there's been a lot of surprises, funny surprises and bad surprises too. But what if I said, let's see, what types of movies would be the most fitting? What if I said, like, I'm not interested in watching, like, black movies because they're too black and they're too whatever. It's like, what if I said that? There would be so much outrage. There would be so much pushback against saying that. It would be like, because it's ridiculous. It's like, another thing is that they're not just all straight and white. There are a lot of films, a lot of horror films that aren't like that. There's a lot of horror films with characters who are gay. There's a lot of horror films with diverse casts. Candyman, blah, 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 blah. I don't need to list off thousands and thousands of examples because it's stupid. It's like, this is not the 1900s. This is not the 1800s. Like, this actress, she can drink out of the same water fountain as Wes Craven did. Like, she's making up issues and pretending like they are actual issues and that they've always been. It's just, oh, everyone knows. Like, really? Does everyone really know that horror is straight and white? I mean, what does that even mean? You watch a horror movie for the story, for the characters, for the scares, for whatever. You don't watch a horror movie because it has a gay, diverse person in it. If you do, then you have a problem. I mean, unless you're just seeking them out to support them, and or to explore a different category, or just whatever. But if you're purposefully saying, I'm not going to watch Halloween 1978 because Michael Myers isn't gay and he isn't black either. Joe Grizzly was black. Joe Grizzly in Halloween remake. It's Joe Grizzly, bitch. That's probably the best character of the Halloween series. But because the movie isn't about Joe Grizzly, you're going to pretend like it's not a diverse movie. You're going to pretend. And the fact that she was born in 1994. So that means that she was 18 in like 2000. Let's see if my math was correct. Let's just do it again because I want to click the numbers. Okay. In 2012, she was 18. That means in 2012, she can be in any horror movie she wants because she's old enough to take her clothes off. And it means that, is anyone really going to pretend, like, from the years, like, 2010 and on, that there wasn't this huge, agenda push where they did all this gender swapping, race swapping, virtue signaling, making these fucking quota movies? They're still doing it. They're still destroying film to insert their agendas into everything. But apparently they're not to this actress. It is still the 1960s. There's still all these problems, and it's just, nothing has ever progressed ever. I'm sorry, but that's a lie. That's a complete lie. And especially with the horror genre, I mean, to complain about the horror genre of all things, I mean, horror already has enough issues. Let's see. Let's name the issues that the horror genre has. Number one, they don't make any scary movies. There's nothing scary at all. Like the movies are not scary in any way, shape, or form. they don't really put any effort into actually making the movie scary. They pretend like psychological stuff is scary, like, I don't know, like that Hereditary movie. The movie was creepy at some points, but it wasn't scary. Or, a movie like, I don't want to talk about shitty ass Rosemary's Baby, but that would be another one where that one wasn't scary at all. There are no scares in that movie. There can be good horror movies that aren't scary, but that is a big, glaring issue. Like, I think about, what are my top horror movies? Well, number one, guys, is obviously Psycho 3. And that movie has a couple of scary moments, a couple of very creepy, like, ugh moments. And one of those, the movie always used to scare me as a kid, too. There were some really scary moments. Probably my favorite one, you guys might not think it's too scary, but it really creeps me out even to this day sometimes, because at the very end, Norman Bates gets into the police car and he's being taken to prison forever, and the sheriff's like, they're never going to let you out this time. And he's like, he just doesn't care. And then he has Emma Spoole's chopped off hand concealed in his jacket or whatever, and he's stroking it. And then it turns to nighttime, and he starts smiling. And the creepy smile just, like, it blends in with the night, the darkness, and it just looks really creepy. Like, you would not want that guy to be in the back of any car with you, like, ugh. Even though, he's supposedly harmless. Like, that was a scary moment. You think about, what's another one that I think is the best? The Shining. Ugh! There is a ton of scary moments in The Shining. I'm not going to go through them, because this video will be like 5 hours if I probably could have done like a 5-hour essay just completely calling out this bullshit. But I'm not really well enough to do that right now. Nor do I want to. I have other things to do. Number 2, another problem that the horror genre has, well, they don't make anything original, and, these studios, especially Blumhouse, you have a ton of these, like, low-quality movies that are terrible, and then, really, all the low-quality movies are just made to service and to make these terrible, awful movies like Halloween Ends, Scream 5. Those are the movies that they really want to make so that they can destroy all these franchises. And Hollywood doesn't have any ability to make original horror films. They don't approve the good scripts. People with great ideas, great movies will come in, and they won't get their scripts approved. And a lot of the time it'll be because they're white men, and because they're not, we're looking for a diverse writer. We don't want your movie, even though it's better in every way, shape, or form. Like, that will happen sometimes. It hasn't happened to me, if you're wondering, because I know that might sound like, oh, he must have a personal vendetta. No, I don't. I haven't shown my script to any Hollywood anyone. I only show it to actors who are auditioning for the roles. Number 3. Horror movies, they're not horror anymore. They don't have any violence. You have to yell and scream for them to put violence into horror movies. So you have a lot of them, they don't have any violence. So they basically should just be PG-13. Or you have a lot of them that have too much violence. Like Terrifier. Those movies are just show-off movies where, he's showing off, look, I can do special effects makeup. I can do the Terrifier's makeup. Or, another thing is there's no nudity, there's no sex, and that's a problem with movies in general nowadays. There's this kind of unwritten rule that's come up where, you're not allowed to have any, naked people, you're not allowed to have any sexual activity, or it has to be, heavily policed and, edited down and ruined and destroyed. And so that's another issue. And what that does is it creates the feeling like horror isn't really horror. It creates the feeling like these movies are not really like the true horror movies of the past, where they could do whatever the fuck they wanted, and you wouldn't have these retards telling them, are sex scenes really necessary? Is it really necessary to make a Halloween film where some girl doesn't have a shirt on? Is that really necessary? And, these are the same people. What have they done? They haven't ever made a Halloween. They haven't ever made a thing. They've just made shit. And they continue to make shit. And then you're going to pretend like, oh, the biggest problem with horror is that it's too straight and it's too white. Another problem with horror, let's just go down the line. Another problem, let's think about it. Another problem with horror is the lack of respect. And you can see it right here. This is a prime example. There is a general disdain for horror in Hollywood, and it evolved over the years. And it's so ironic because, Hollywood, they were founded on horror movies. Hollywood was built on horror. Universal Studios wouldn't even exist nowadays if not for horror movies. So, it's really sad that, these studios, they're so retarded that they don't have any respect for this, probably the greatest genre in film history, the most important genre in film history, the most perfect. I mean, the horror genre has so many better movies than any other genre in the history of film. Like, the only other genre that kind of rivals horror movies to me is like true story movies, like biopics and stuff like that, or just movies based on true events. Like, I just watched the movie last month, Judgment at Nuremberg. That was a really good movie, and that was based on true events and everything. And, there's lots of movies like that in that genre. But horror is the number one genre. But sadly, ever since the Hays Code, when they, ruined everything, and, if I was around during the Hays Code, I would have gone to jail, because I would have broken every rule in the book on purpose, and I would have said, fuck you, and I would have called the movie Fuck You, and then I would have had all the characters be named various profanity words. I'd have a character named Cunt, I'd have a character named Cock, and it would be a damn good movie, let me tell you. Ever since then, it feels like there's been this general, resentment towards horror. Horror is bad because it has monsters and scary stuff. Even though you have fantasy movies, they have monsters. You have psychological thrillers, dramas, they have monsters and shit. All the criticisms that are always lobbied against horror. Every other genre is guilty of these same problems. Like, you talk about this, kind of, in the 80s with dipshit Ebert and Siskel. Well, they're not always dipshits, but they're dipshits in regards to the horror genre especially. They pretended like horror movies were sexist, and they're just all about seeing women suffer and wah, wah, wah. But then you look at, like, Michael Bay's movies, and you look at fucking The Island, which I saw in school, and I wrote down how sexist it was. Like, I don't care about it, but I just wrote it down as, like, a general, it's a fact. That movie's sexist. He makes sexist movies. I mean, it's a fact. It's an objective fact. But these same people who criticize horror for that, they won't even criticize Michael Bay. They just say, oh, he makes popcorn movies. They don't even really address that. You know, they pretend like horror is the only genre where movies are sexist, or where movies have, you know, women being in danger. And it's not, to me, it's one of the stupidest criticisms. I mean, nothing as stupid as saying it's the horror genre is bad because it's white and straight. I mean, that is probably one of the stupidest things I've ever heard in my entire life. And it's like horror is the black sheep genre. The Oscars used to give awards to horror. They blatantly are prejudiced against horror movies. Now they refuse to give anything to horror movies. That's why I don't even take the Oscars seriously. I don't take any award show seriously. I just do my own awards. And those are the awards that I take seriously. And, you know, last year I gave plenty of awards to horror movies and everything, and I'm not going to discriminate like that. And so that is the biggest problem with horror. And the horror genre doesn't need more bullshit like this. You know, like adding in this fake complaint, this fake problem. This has never, ever, ever, ever been a problem. If you don't like that horror is straight and white, then go make your own damn horror movie. You know, go make a horror movie yourself. Go make, I don't know, 2 lesbians of the living dead. Like, I don't fucking care. And then nobody's gonna watch it. You know why? Because people watch horror movies to watch the stories. And speaking of stories, let's go to foreign horror movies. Because even with Safi and I, you know, 2 years ago. Sorry. 2 years ago, we did Greek Festival, Greek Celebration, and we watched Drakulos which means Dracula and Company in Greece, in Greek. And that was from like the 40s or 50s or 30s. That's not... Oh, but some Greek people happen to have lighter skin tones, so I guess it's just not acceptable, and it's not interesting. And it's weird, too, because you think about what is interesting when you watch a horror movie. Like, are there people who really watch a horror movie like Night of the Living Dead, and they're like, well, hold on, these guys are all surviving from the zombies. They're all, you know, fending them off. Why are any of the surviving people gay? Is that really something that people ask themselves when they watch a horror movie? Because that's just fucking retarded. There's plenty of foreign horror movies. There's movies from every country and every place in the world. There is not a shortage of foreign horror movies. Even funnier, you'd never hear a Chinese actor or a Chinese actress complain and say, you know, the problem with Chinese horror movies is that they're just too Asian. Like, like who the fuck would ever say that? Like, what kind of world are these people living in that they say weird shit like this? I mean, you see what I mean? Like, nobody in Mongolia would ever say, you know, the problem with Mongolian movies, they're just too Mongolian. They're just too Mongolian. Like, if I want to have Mongolian, I'll go to a Chinese restaurant and have Mongolian beef. You know, leave your Mongolian out of my horror movies, man. Even though I'm Mongolian myself, and, you know, the majority of people in Mongolia are Mongolian. just like the majority of people in America are ... And so they'd obviously be in all these horror movies and shit, in any movies. But that doesn't mean that they're the only people in them. That's completely false. You know, like, for instance, it all depends, too, on who you can get and where you can get actors. You know, when I did my project, I was in speech class in high school for senior year. It was just a filler class, and we were all assigned groups to make short, silent horror movies. Or they weren't supposed to be horror, but we made them horror. And I was assigned with 2 other white people. So that means the only people in our horror movie were white. Is that my problem? No. But how does that make that movie not interesting that we made? How does that make that short movie not interesting? Just because, like, oh no, I guess it's like I should have forced my teacher to, like, import some people from other classrooms so that, you know, my movie could have diversity in it. I mean, it's just stupid. It's stupid as hell. You think about all these horror movie makers, all these filmmakers who struggled, they couldn't succeed, and they're like, you know, I have to make it all on my own. I have to make a horror movie all by myself. These are the limited people I can get. This is what I'm going to do. And since all those people just happen to be white, it's not interesting to people like Female Randy from the Scream movies. That's pretty shitty. You know, it's really shitty. Like David Lynch, when he made Eraserhead, and he could only get those couple of people, and he still made that movie, and it turned him into something. And, you know, and the problem is, you know, this leads us to why we're at where we're at now. If these types of people were around when he made Eraserhead, they would never have let him make Eraserhead. They would never have said Eraserhead was good. If David Lynch made Eraserhead in 2023, he would be criticized for making a white movie with no gay characters, especially from people like this actress. And so that's a problem, because it shows that the focus isn't on story, the focus isn't on quality of the movies, the focus is on something else. And that's just blatantly wrong. You can say, I don't like horror movies. Because, you know, there's lots of people who don't like horror movies. There's a bunch of idiots who think that horror movies give them demons and stuff like that. But once you start saying, I don't like horror movies because they're too straight and white, that's a problem. Okay, normal people, they don't think like that. They don't say stuff like that because they know that it's stupid and brainless and dumb. Because it's prejudice. It's like, this movie isn't interesting because the people in it aren't the same race as me. This book, books, that people read, Romeo and Juliet, that's not interesting because, those characters are white and they're not gay. That's just, it's retarded. I mean, that is just completely brain dead thinking. And, I mean, you look at things of the past. I looked up a lot of examples, and then I found out, her quotas don't apply equally. So, I was thinking about the Golem series. The Golem series is very, very important in horror history. It's a Jewish movie series, and then there were all these movies in the series, and they got lost and destroyed. And that's very important, and it would be monumental if those movies were found. Oh, but Jewish people are white, and they're not gay. So, that doesn't count. That's not interesting to this actress. And you think about like Nosferatu, very famous German horror movie. Oh, German people are white, so that doesn't count. And none of the people in Nosferatu are gay, so that doesn't count either. And so you see what I mean? Like, all these movies, all these incredibly important horror movies that everyone who's in a horror movie or associated with horror should know. This woman is saying they are not important, they are not interesting, which that's like... She's definitely not getting a pass for Scream 7, that's for damn sure. I mean, it's sad because I had thought that her character improved, and I thought, the actress, maybe she's a really nice person, and maybe she, figured out, I probably should be a character, even though she was still shitty in the movie at some points. I thought maybe it's just the fault of the writers, and it's not. But it's clear to me that this is bad. I mean, this is really, really bad. And then you go to the 30s, because I just was in the 20s, what I was talking about. You go to the 30s, Bride of Frankenstein. Bride of Frankenstein, even though it's not technically a gay movie, Bride of Frankenstein is... it's widely acknowledged as being a gay movie. Oh, but the people in Bride of Frankenstein are white, so that doesn't count. And so you see what I mean? You see what we're getting at here? This is clear and utter prejudice and racism. It's just complete... it's like, just watch the horror movies. Like, I'm sorry, but saying that horror isn't good because the people in horror movies are not gay and non-white is not a good thing to say. And then you go to the 40s. And I'm just picking out, like, examples that jump out. I'm not going to go through everything, obviously. But you think about the 40s, and I'm not really seeing anything worth talking about right now. Well, I mean, never mind. Not right now, not off the top of my head. You go to the 50s. You got House of Wax, Vincent Price. Vincent Price is gay. Vincent Price was gay. Okay, he had the whole Red Scare thing where he was blacklisted for no reason, but he was also gay. So you're just saying House of Wax isn't interesting, even though you have Vincent Price. And keep that in mind, too. There were a lot of actors back then who were closeted. They couldn't say they were gay. They couldn't say they were lesbian. They couldn't say they were transgender. I mean, here's a great example. Kiss of the Vampire was a movie that I reviewed last year. But you're saying that you won't support... You think about how many horror movies back in history you could go back and look at. And even though you don't know that some of these people are gay, a lot of those people are probably gay or something. They might be. Or they might have been gay at some point and then, bisexual, I don't know. But you think about, like, you're not going to support those people either just because they're not outwardly gay and because the movies aren't about them being gay. Like, that's really terrible, honestly. That's really, really terrible. But my most famous example, my most notable example, is... let's see, is that the actor's name or the character? Okay, the character. Okay, so in Kiss of the Vampire, you have this guy named Barry Warren. He was a very good actor, and he was in movies like Frankenstein Created Whammon. And he was in Kiss of the Vampire. And he was gay. And guess what happened? You know, he was closeted, and he did have a wife and he had 2 children, but apparently he underwent a sex change operation and lived for 5 years as Claire Warren before his death in 1994. Oh, that was the year that token female Randy was born. Oh, but the only way that we know this is because of Sarah Miles' memoirs. I don't even know who Sarah Miles is. But that's the only way that we know this. And you think, how many other actors were like this? And so you're saying you're not going to support these actors, you're not going to support these people, you're not going to watch these horror movies because, well, I mean, this guy, he, even though he's trans, he's still white, so I guess that doesn't count to you. That's pretty bad, honestly. I wouldn't say that ever in public if I were you. Don't ever say that again. Please. It's really bad. So, all in all, we have to talk about Scream 5 and 6 and token female Randy. So, token female Randy. In the Scream series, Randy was a character. And to me, he's the best character of the series. I would say Randy, and then Sidney, and then Dewey, and then Billy and Stu, and then Gail, and everyone else can go jump off a cliff. Now, Randy, he was the everyman. He was literally one of the main reasons the movie worked, because he was the person who reminded the audience of just any horror fan. Randy was generally a horror fan. You think about how many times, no matter what race or sexuality you are, how many times as a horror fan in the 90s, you'd be at the video store looking at movies, looking at horror movies, picking out ones to rent and go home. You think about how many times you'd be screaming at the TV and declaring that, like, oh, you know that this is going to happen and this is going to happen because you've seen a lot more horror movies than these other people. Like, there's so many things that made him identifiable besides his race and sexuality. His race and sexuality were really, like, I mean, they're important because that's who he was, but they weren't really at the top of the importance list in terms of character. Now, they took that character and they friend-zoned him in part 2, and then they killed him in a terrible way, and it basically destroyed the series because he was the best character and they killed him off, and it's like, that's weak. That's weak sauce. They should have done it in part 3. They should have had him get together with Sidney in part 2. Or at least have him get together with her before he gets killed. You know, that's the least they could have done. But they wouldn't do that. Now, in 2021... they came out with Scream 5, and you had this female Randy character. And she's obnoxious, she's bratty, she's unlikable, she's forgettable, she's weak, and basically her whole character is just this token person to be there to fulfill quotas and to kind of remind you of Randy, and copy and plagiarize a couple of Randy moments from the original Scream movie. That's the only reason token female Randy exists. Now in Scream 6, they go even more off the chain. They give her a girlfriend, and a lot of the times they're making out on the couch as if that's an interesting character arc, and it is to the people nowadays, I guess. It's sad because, like, in Scream 2, Randy, he didn't have any girlfriend. They wouldn't give him any love interest. I guess because he's straight, and so, there was no reason to really emphasize that he would have, like, a love interest. But it was very important to give female Randy this girlfriend who gets killed in a hilarious, brutal way. And then female Randy, she starts to do this weird thing where she's discriminating against the white friend in the group, and she's basically saying, oh, he's obviously the killer. I don't really care if I actually know because I'm female Randy and I know everything. And she got even more obnoxious, and she's stating all these stupid rules that don't make any sense. They're completely bullshit. They're hypocritical. They're just not factual. And by the end of the movie, she gets stabbed and she almost gets killed. And then the next day, she's just running around like nothing ever happened. And she's joking. She's turning everything into a joke. And it's like, wow, you're so obnoxious. You're so unlikable. Why are you like this? Why do you have to be like this? But the point that I'm making about this character is that this is what this actress thinks is progress. To take a character from Scream, the original movie, Randy, and then to turn him into this extremely unlikable character. I don't think that's progress, and I don't think that that's a good thing. She calls the character by name. I can't even remember what the character's name is, but, like, nobody even knows this character's name that she plays in the Scream series. And the fact is, like, everyone knows Randy. Why is that? Is that because he's white and straight? Or is it because he's a good character and female Randy in the Blumhouse Screams is trash? I'll give you a hint. It's option B. So anyways, horror is not too straight and white. And by the way, I know somebody who was supposed to be in my movie, and she was Puerto Rican. And what she did was she moved to Puerto Rico, and then she pretended like she didn't know that the movie was going to be a non-paid role. And so there you go. Like, there you go. Like, sorry. Like, I guess I just have to work with what I have. And so I just can't, like, you can't even force anything, because then you have people like this who just, they fuck you over. And, so there you go. And I bet my movie, it's not interesting to this person because, I was not able to get people to be in it of that kind. Well, of course, she's not gay, though, so. It's just, we need to stop checking boxes, okay? In film, in general, in film history, we need to stop checking boxes. We need to stop having guidelines. We need to stop having these stupid ways to restrict people's creativity. Because people like this, you can see now, she's in this major horror movie series. She doesn't even like horror. That should tell you guys about what a lot of these people think for real about these movies that they're in, about these shows that they're in, because they always say, like, oh, these people, they're not deliberately destroying Star Wars. They are. They don't like Star Wars. These people don't like horror movies. These people don't have respect for the genre. You look at the movies of the past, the horror movies of the past, they were made by people who respected the genre. And that's why they were so good. And so maybe we need to start restoring respect into the horror genre instead of pretending like there's this problem that's completely imaginary. So anyways, please like this video, comment, tell me what you think about this terrible, terrible quote too. And the fact that then she says, I'm in one white woman show a year, Big Little Lies and The White Lotus. Like, that's really, really weird. That's really bad. Like, I don't know who talks like that. Nobody else in this entire country talks like that. Like, see, ugh. Please subscribe to our channel if you'd like to see more topic videos like this. I didn't enjoy this because I thought I was happy. I thought she was a good character somewhat in Scream 6. She was an improvement, and I didn't mind her, but now she's kind of ruined that because I'm going to see her in all these horror movies, and I'm going to think about, this is somebody who doesn't respect the genre, and she doesn't even like the genre. Like, that's terrible. Goodbye, everybody. See you soon.